Peyton, good to see you again on this beautiful time of day and night. This time with a quote by David Deutsch, the guy who invented the quantum computing basics, because he wanted to prove the multiverse theory, or try to find an experiment to look for the multiverse theory. So when he said, we have a duty to be optimistic, because the future is open and not predetermined and therefore cannot just be accepted. We are all responsible for what it holds. Thus, it is our duty to fight for a better world. So, what do you think about our duty to be optimistic, Peyton? Good to be back.
Good to be back. Yes, this is a really interesting quote, and it's obviously nested within the context of just the unbelievable transformation that technology is unleashing upon the world and upon the future in front of our eyes at an insanely accelerating rate that is impossible to keep up with. And so, what are the responses to it? Of course there's fears, of course there's overwhelm, and those things are completely justified. Like, the world is changing so fast, and we seem to be rapidly approaching a point where the AI will be what is working on the AI much better than humans. And so superior problem solvers are building even acceleratingly superior problem solvers. And beyond this one-way threshold is a black box of possibility that even the brightest humans alive have no idea what is on the other side. And so, and this same thing applies, I would say, at a reduced rate, but still nonetheless pretty incredible what is possible and on the horizon in synthetic biology and robotics. But I do have a distinction that AI is by far the most overwhelming and extreme of these accelerating forces. And so the response to be overwhelmed, totally understandable. The response to be fearful, totally understandable. And the instinct to want to turtle shell is something that we can all empathize with. It totally makes sense that as humans, it's like, oh shit, I just kind of want to bury my head in the sand and look away from this because I have no idea what I can do about this. But what is also true is that we are looking at an avalanche. There is a mountain of snow that is now disrupted and now falling down at an accelerating rate, picking up more snow on its way down. And the right answer is not to stand still and just turn 180 and look in the other direction and let it come to us without us having any agency over it. The right answer is not to bury our head in the snow right here and just accept that there's nothing to do. But in my opinion, this is a pretty crazy race that we are going to run. We should absolutely look at this, especially where we stand right now, as a moment of agency, opportunity, possibility, because what is our alternative if we're not looking at this and giving our all into making the most of what is there for us and being agile and responsive and pouring ourselves into the reality that we encounter? Then we are throwing away our potential and we're not doing ourselves any good by trying to shrink from this, because it's not optional. We're on this ride. And given that we're on this ride, we should be trying to ride it as well as we can. And I think that a sense of optimism and possibility about the future is a foundation for giving ourselves and empowering ourselves to be more perceptive to the possibilities and the opportunities that are in front of us, and to be intentional about strategy that we may want to deploy for the reality that we anticipate or that we encounter. How do you think about this optimism and this sense of agency and the sense of overwhelming uncertainty and overwhelming possibility and rapid change?
Yeah, thank you, man. You pointed towards agency, which is really the basis for really changing your life and creating what you want to create. So being optimistic as a duty refers to taking responsibility of your agency as well. Let's turn it around. If you're pessimistic about the future, the thing is you won't even try to change it. And this is a totally different basis to really seeing things in the realm of possibilities that could work and experimenting with them and see what really then works in the complex scenario that you are trying to test. And yeah, this is the anti-goal, so to say, not to be pessimistic as a foundation, to be able to do something that then can work. So there may be multiple things that lead to the same outcome. It's like equivalent like equifinality, when you reach the same outcome but with different kinds of solutions. But if you say it doesn't work, so why should I try? You won't even search and reach one of the solutions. But whereas you're optimistic and say, I'll find a way. Then you found a way, and you see, oh, it's probably not the most effective way. I could tweak that, I could tune this part so that I could remove that part and it still works. So you can optimize in that way as well. So it's like a prerequisite for building stuff that can be optimized, that works. And therefore being optimistic as a duty to ourselves is like the most rational thing to do if we really want to change the future. As Alan Kay said, the best way, or somebody else, I don't remember, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And yeah, the best way to predict the future is to create parts of it and implement it. And also see that the past will also be in the future as well. But then take the things of the past that worked and reintegrate it into the future, but better, optimized, looking for solutions that are more effective, faster. What do you think about the possibility to optimize the things that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, and I like how he phrases we are responsible for what the future holds. And it kind of reminds me of, I may butcher the quote, but it was a Jocko Willink quote where he talks about something happened that's outside of your control, that's out in the external world that may have surprised you. And so you are not to blame for what happens, but you are responsible for what happens. If something huge comes in and changes the game and the skill set you learned 4 years ago is now completely obsolete and now there's this totally unrelated opportunity and this thing is totally open now and this thing is obsolete now and all of these different things, it's not your fault that this happened. It really had very little to do with me that we have this unbelievable tidal wave that is upon us. However, we are responsible for what it holds, meaning that we do not want to, it does not serve us to relinquish our own sense of ownership over the course of our lives. And he points to this. I read this quote originally as implying a more macro level, as we as tiny pieces of a global community are responsible for what it holds. And of course, there is some merit in that in different ways in kind of relating to that. I think that we should understand that there's certain ways that we can contribute and certain things that really are outside of our control that we shouldn't overly obsess with and identify with. And there's wise judgment to be had in the distinction between the two. What I do think is abundantly clear, though, is yes, we will influence the external world. Yes, we will support others in our shared human future and the opportunities that present themselves to us to the extent that they do in our individual lives with our specific skill sets, resources, and limitations. However, what is absolutely true for all of us is we are responsible for what it holds for us. We are responsible for what it holds for our families. We are responsible for what it holds for our loved ones and for our friends and for our communities. And this is something that we really should not try to run from. This is something that we should not try to shrink from. We, in this one hand, have this new insane energy, this new insane potential that costs $20 a month or zero, as well as several other things that are coming online that are unbelievably empowering. And in this other hand, we have a black hole of uncertainty, dynamic change, and rapid movement in the world. And so we must recognize that, okay, these things are both really increasing. I really shouldn't throw this away. Like, I really should actually do what is within my control, take ownership and responsibility for my own life, tell myself that, okay, I really want to level myself up and empower myself in order to navigate what's going on, and nobody's going to do it for me, and there's actual, like, cause and effect is real in the real world. So just because the world is outside of my control, just because I can't predict what the hell is going to be going on in 10 years, doesn't mean that my decisions won't have effects. It doesn't mean that the things that I do on an input won't have an output that will really affect what it is like to be me, that will really affect what it will be like for my family to be them, what it will be like for my ability to influence what's going on around me. And so it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility how you navigate your own life and how you do the best that you can with what you've got, where you are, given all the things that are moving and given your awareness of the momentum of these great and overwhelmingly powerful forces.
It reminds me of the aspirational goal to be a good ancestor. First, to be a good steward of your resources, but also then preparing to be a good ancestor in terms of you're responsible for how the future generations will live their lives as well. We are building cutting edge infrastructure for the future. At EVTech, for example, for electric car infrastructure, and you build like innovation for glass block windows. And this is also important part because people will live inside the things we are building, or will use the things we are building, and everything we create which is more usable also will make the life a little bit better for most of the people who use it. And this is also a nice way to look at it. In everything you do it for the people you are doing it for, in terms of make it for humans, make it usable, make it beautiful, make it robust so that it holds value for a long term. Like, this is what also Vitruvian, the Roman architect, referred to. His 3 principles about architecture are timeless, also can also be applied to, for example, software architecture or even your life design. And he says good architecture has to have venustas, meaning beauty, has to have firmitas, meaning robustness, and has to have utilitas, meaning utility. It has to be useful. It has to be built for the people who use it, or for the things or people, whatever. It has to be usable and beautiful and robust. And when we apply these principles to our life or to the things we create, then I guess there's more value and more sustainability, and also for the people who come after us, for our children, for our children's children. That's why I also created this book of questions, preserving your life story, how you can reflect upon your life with questions. For the older generations who have experienced, for example, their life, made many mistakes, but also learned from them, learned their lessons, and have evolved systems in terms of relationship systems or health systems, which they can transfer to the other generations in reflecting upon it and writing it down. So that it will be like a story through time. And preparing to be a good ancestor also means reflecting upon what works and bringing it back into the future, so to say.
Yes, and this is the difference between wisdom and knowledge in the end, is that most wisdom is not intellectually hard to grasp or hard to conjure up. However, it is one of 10 different ways of framing this and that. Like, it is more important to trust this rather than this. When this arises, you need to respond in this way. Things like this are not, they're just one of a sea of, quote, logical knowledge and information. And it is only the life experience that is kind of felt throughout the body and intuition that accounts for all of these learnings and life experiences and converts them into wisdom that kind of stands on its own, independent of logical proofs. A part of you can tell this once it has learned these lessons and walked this path. On another note, I do love the architecture quote, and it originally, you were the one that told me this, and it gave me a newfound appreciation for the robustness that you can sense in certain structures and how that actually does add to the pleasure that you take from walking within and all around them. There's a difference between a giant stone cathedral that feels so solid, so robust, so just like it's planted there and it is rock solid, versus something that's built with sticks. You don't have the same, there's a different energy and presence that those two different things have. But back to optimism, back to why, back to holy shit, we have this technology that is unleashing Pandora's box and we have no way to control it. And in fact, that is the case. There is no control over the future. Like, control is just off the menu for all of us from now on. And even before it was kind of an illusion. Now it's just like, it shouldn't even be an illusion anymore. We should just recognize there's no control, there's no brakes, and there's no steering wheel. But there are an unbelievable suite of potential for this, and one that really I think naturally as humans and just historically, our species has consistently underestimated what technology can bring in terms of the potential for human well-being. If we look at what percent of humans died every year due to famine just 100 years ago versus today, transformationally different. If we look at life expectancy, if we look at how many people die in childbirth, if we look at how many people have a house, how many people have a car, if we look at whether or not people can have conversations with their good friend from across the world, if we look at various vaccines, if we look at the internet, if we look at all of these crazy enabled things from our world as it really relates to alleviating the suffering of human beings, of conscious human beings, and enabling possibilities that were never possible before, including a life that's twice as long, including better nourishment, including things that are directly related to our chemistry. There's been a huge wave of good over the past couple hundred years. And this wave, I would argue, of the last 200 years, if we compare that much progress to the next 30 years, I think that the next 30 years will vastly exceed the last 2 centuries. And this is an opinion, this is based off of trends that I think that I see, but we shouldn't underestimate how much positivity we stand to gain from super intelligence in this hand, and then kind of as a lower tier set of technologies, genetic engineering and robotics, there just stands to be this wave of possibility and prosperity that regardless of where it ends and how uncertain the ending is, there are real problems that in the meantime, in the real world, right now and in the coming decade, we stand to solve. There's going to be immense progress in building materials and how we can construct things for what cost with what downsides. There's going to be immense benefits in life expectancy, what diseases we will be able to cure, and what diseases not only will we have a cure, but actually we will be able to eradicate. The polio of last century may be 15 infectious diseases this century, and that's really on the menu. If we think about climate change and how the temperature has been rising, and we've been talking about this for decades, it's like, wow, wouldn't it be nice if we invented really good, cost-effective carbon capture technology with some of these new materials, with some of these technologies, with some of these new manufacturing procedures and inefficiencies in the labor market? What if we were able to actually restore ecosystems that have become totally depleted and unhealthy, including resurrecting extinct species? The woolly mammoth is going to be probably back on the menu, at least somewhere within our lifetimes, and several other extinct species could join, depending on what humans are able to mobilize and organize to accomplish. And these things are really in the works and really making progress. And then, of course, you have disease. And then the last thing that is this, of all these, I feel confident in pretty much all of those predictions in terms of cause and effect. The last cause and effect that I anticipate, but I have less certainty about, is I think that these technologies could bring about a transformation in the psychological human experience of many of our species if they are harnessed in the right way. At least I'm confident that they will provide the means for somebody to vastly improve what it is like to be them in terms of their own inner state, their well-being, their psychological health, if they choose to take advantage of it. And obviously, I think that it can be used for harm, it can be used for good. Just providing the means for people who are deeply suffering and caught in vicious cycles of their own neurochemistry and thoughts and don't know how to break out and they're confused. There's hundreds of millions or billions of people that are caught in that predicament right now that are really not having a good time. And for there to become a means for them to transform that and to have agency over that is an incredibly exciting possibility that won't necessarily show up in GDP per capita numbers, but is nonetheless extremely important as it's kind of the bedrock of the experience of conscious beings where all of these external changes are ultimately cashed in. And so these possibilities are things that we need. We want people to have houses over their heads, or a roof over their head, and to be in houses. We want people to have enough food to eat. We want diseases to be eradicated. We want a cure for cancer. We want abundant building materials. We want abundant renewable energy, and we want to restore the ecosystems and the climate of our planet. And all of these things could rapidly move in the right direction within the next couple of decades because of this incredible potential in this technology that we have in hand. How do you think about of course, there's this uncertainty. There also is just this immense potential for solving real problems that have felt impossible to solve or scarce and difficult to solve for so long.
Well, I admire our species so much. I just flew a plane to the other side of the world and the stuff got handled and I paid like a reasonable fee for it, and There's so much things that are just like wheels that hold each other into each other, that are just functioning and working. And I admire civilization for solving these problems, providing the solutions to every citizen. So it's obviously something very beautiful that the human knowledge can be accelerated as well, and the human energy and creativity can be used to create a future which like nobody on its own could create. Is like a civilization which provides so much value, and even a king could not have the wealth that the common man nowadays has, like 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Um, that said, if we apply our creativity and our energy to solve free world problems, and now we have, with this universal tool of AI, we have like a big lever in hand, and the lever will become better and better. And so we necessarily do not need like AI building better AI, but actually humans using AI to really make their uniqueness productive, really make the things, their tastes, bring their tastes into the world with much better effectivity, so that the potential can be really unfolded for everyone. That's what makes me actually happy and excited as well. And that's why I see that your predictions are really much in the realm of possibilities, because everybody has a story behind his or her motivation. The best researchers probably have like a background, for example, a Harvard psychologist who, no, a Harvard medical doctor, I guess, who and create the universal theory around mitochondria and how they relate to mental health. He had like a family history about a family member being treated very badly in the unhealth system, where the psychiatrists medicate the people and so on and destroy their brain basically, when the real answer would have been maybe do some sports or more sports, or it's a different kind of approach to it. But the creativity applied to this because of the motivation based on his family history. And now think of that levered with tools we have nowadays, because everybody has some kind of these background stories which really motivate either to go into a direction or to have an aversion for another direction. And therefore I believe this combination between human and machine is a thing that is really admirable. And I believe, yeah, human creativity is endless and the possibilities are endless. So we can actually think about which life we want to see for the future generations, for ourselves in the future as well, and then start to plan the steps to take towards it. What is what we envision, and what do we have to do and put ourselves through to really make reality out of that vision, to really switch the timeline on approaching this vision step by step and taking the next best step, and not going to a timeline where we say, I don't see any point in trying, but really try and experiment as as a way to go forward, as a way to really honor the gift of creativity, honor the possibility for human people to create knowledge.
Yes,
That's
and
what
I can hear the objection in my own mind that, okay, great, that's good, but aren't we just burying our head to this giant tidal wave in front of us? And the answer is no, actually. The answer is, given that this giant tidal wave of uncertainty is in front of us, yes, we shouldn't price in that next year will feel like last year, and next decade will feel like last decade. But embracing this creativity, leaning all the way in, is the best way to actually navigate an incredibly uncertain future. If we are afraid of the future, then we should learn to use these things and leverage these things, and maybe we put 10% of our energy and resources into making ourselves anti-fragile and robust in the case of extreme volatility or civilization level disruption. And sure, that's a fine strategy, and very much I can look at the probabilities and see that we should probably allocate some amount of leveraging these resources to that end, to protect ourselves or to assuage some of our concerns about our own vulnerability in various scenarios. However, we cannot stop the tsunami. We must learn to surf. And there is, as the founder of Anthropic says, there is now a country full of geniuses in a data center that all of us have access to. And that completely transforms the game already. And it is transforming the game in itself very much faster. And so there's not an option to participate in our species and in our planets and the changes that are coming. And so we've got to ride the waves and make the most of it. So that is it from me, my friend. I will leave us with that the intention, and I will talk to you on the next one.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Peyton, for this conversation. May we embrace uncertainty and deal with reality as it is and go the next best step forward and reflect and adapt. And with that, evolve ourselves into the vision that the persons we envision to be, and also the future we envision, and create that for us and the future generations as well.
Sounds like a
See you, my
plan.
friend.
I will see you on the next one, man.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.